If you are a veteran-owned business, or if you have somebody that's even a co-owner that was a veteran, then you're going to love this training, because we're going to be diving into about 7 of the top options for veterans to be able to get business loans. So these are better business loans. Typically, better means you're able to get them faster. You're able to get the money faster than if you're non-veteran. And there's specified programs, even free money out there just specifically for you if you're a veteran-owned business. And on top of that, there's also better rates and better terms, lower interest rates, higher approval amounts, longer terms. All of these are benefits that kind of spread out amongst these 7 different options I'm going to discuss today. So you're going to leave this training understanding probably the 7 best options out there for you as a veteran-owned business to be able to get more money and better terms to basically get rewarded for the status of the sacrifice that you've had by serving our country. So first of all, let me start off by saying thank you for your service. If you're watching this and you are a veteran-owned business owner or a veteran-owned business, thank you very much for your service. I can tell you, for me personally, I know that I walk through my life and unfortunately take for granted all the things that our soldiers are out there doing to be able to give me the freedoms that I have. And I oftentimes try to think about that and think about how appreciative I am of all the veterans. I know I served in the Air Force for 4 years, but I never was in a war zone in a lot of places where a lot of our soldiers are today. So thank you very much for your service. And now let's get you rewarded, because it's easier for you being a veteran-owned business owner to be able to get capital than if you're not. So let's talk about some of the best options. So the best option overall for veteran-owned businesses is really with SBA. And SBA has many different programs or names to different options that they have, one of which is called the Veterans Advantage Program. And the Veterans Advantage Program basically gives you better terms, lower interest rates, and faster approvals with SBA loans. It's actually not uncommon for you to be able to get money from the SBA system and get the money within 3 to 4 weeks, typically, depending on how well you are organized, right? Do you have your documents ready? They're going to need things like that. This is why I cover this on the live streams and training, things you should have ready. And I give you the advice that I follow, which is I literally have a folder on my desktop that is just up-to-date P&Ls and bank statements and my tax returns, all the things I know that a lender is going to ask for. So that way, when I need money, it's super simple for me to get it, because I already have a folder for everything that they're going to ask for. So feel free to go to our YouTube channel and check out more information about what you need to do to prepare for loans. Because if you have an idea of the documents they're going to ask for and you have it ready, it's going to be faster. So the veterans programs offered by SBA are fast programs. Basically, what they're doing is they're prioritizing veteran-owned business applicants over those that are not veteran-owned. And so what this allows you to do is kind of move immediately to the top of the stack, let's say, of files they have to underwrite and be able to get way faster approvals. Plus, you're getting discounted rates on the actual fees you'll pay with SBA. So some of those fees are actually waived altogether, and you're getting an opportunity to get lower interest rates as a veteran-owned business. And by the way, and thank you very much, Pierre, Robert, thank you very much for coming in. I appreciate that. You're welcome. So you must be a veteran. I appreciate you coming in. So the Veteran Advantage Program with SBA is really the way to go. Now, it's typically going to be a 7A loan. What that means is it's for working capital. So that means that you could use this loan for like anything related to actually running a business. And again, the benefits are faster approval times, lower interest rates, but you still have to meet SBA qualification requirements. So when we think about SBA qualification requirements, you're going to need to have good personal credit. You're going to need to have established business credit. You're going to need to have 2 to 3 years worth of tax returns, preferably that show a profit and preferably that show revenue increasing. And then typically they're going to want collateral, business or personal, something or multiple things equivalent to whatever it is that you're borrowing. So SBA is one of those that kind of needs all 3 C's, cash flow, credit, collateral. So you're really going to need those. But if you have those, then SBA, without a doubt, this Veterans Advantage Program is the best way to go. Now, option number 2, it's really not just a program. It's available through alternative or private lenders. So usually for these are an alternative to SBA loans. And a lot of times, again, they're giving you preferential treatment because you are a veteran. And usually the scores range from 620 to 650. So unlike SBA loans that typically require way better credit to be able to get approved, with these, you're actually able to get approved and slide under SBA's requirements, but still get pretty good terms. You're still able to typically get 3 to 5 year loan terms. You typically don't need any collateral. They typically are going to want to see about 1 year's worth of tax returns Hopefully that tax return shows some kind of profit. It definitely increases your probability of getting approved. And again, with this, if you're going to alternative lenders outside of SBA, then they're typically going to underwrite the file faster, and they're going to be able to give you better interest rates. So oftentimes they will, on the alternative side, waive the fee and lower the interest rate and prioritize the underwriting of your file being a veteran-owned business. So again, alternative lenders, if you don't meet the qualification of SBA, is kind of the next one that you want to consider because the terms are longer, the interest rates are lower, you're still getting prioritization and underwriting. But again, you can qualify for these alternative lenders and alternative loans when you're not able to actually qualify for that Veterans Advantage 7A loan. And by the way, Mike is in the house from St. Louis. Mike, what's up, man? Hope you're doing well. Thank you very much for coming in. So the next thing is let's talk about free money. And option number 3 of the 7 really has to do, and I think we are looking at about maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, let me say 6 options that really are specifically for veterans. Now, the next one, though, you think you're going to love because this option, we're really talking about free money. And free money basically comes in the form of grants. So when we talk about grants, grants are always there to help put money in the hand of an underserved audience. So when we think about grants and free money, first of all, the idea of free money automatically makes us skeptical. But keep in mind, grants are designed to incentivize something. Usually they're designed to incentivize growth in a sector, an industry, and oftentimes they are designed to incentivize growth in an area, a geographic area, a rural, suburban area, for example. And then oftentimes they're designed to incentivize basically the growth of business within a minority group. And that minority group may be that you have an African-American owned business. It might be that you have a woman-owned business. It might be that you have an African-American woman-owned business. It might be that you have a veteran-owned business. So these minority groups or underserved audiences are people that are basically have a harder time than getting financing than most others. And veterans fit into that category. So as a result of that, because it is the government, there's a lot of grants come from the government. There's a lot of grant programs out there for you if you're a veteran-owned business. Now, there's 2 different places you really want to look for these. On the private grant side, I don't see a lot out there that are specifically for veterans, but I definitely see a lot of them in 2 different categories. One is at the federal level. So when we look at grants, the federal government is the biggest supplier of federal grants than anybody else. As a matter of fact, the federal government has access and gives out more money through the grant programs than every other source combined. Private, state, local, everything combined. The federal government is the biggest source of this money. So in order to tap into that, what you want to do is you want to go to grants.gov. And when you go to grants.gov, you're able to start narrowing it down. There's a lot happening there. But you're able to go in and start selecting the grant programs that work for you. And you're able to select the option saying that you're a veteran-owned business. And then what it's going to do is narrow down and produce the grants that work well for you being a veteran-owned business. And then you can figure out the things that work for you based on your industry, based on the geographic location that you're in, and find the ones that work well for you. Now, again, this is 100% free money. It doesn't have to be paid back. And consider you are a veteran-owned business, you are in kind of that minority area, then what happens is there's fewer applicants and you get prioritization, which means if you're applying besides non-veterans, well, then you have a greater probability of being able to actually get the money. Look, here's the deal. I talk about grants quite a bit, and unfortunately, very few of you probably do anything about it because it might seem like a little bit of work. You have to find the right grant, you have to apply. But what's nice about grants is that once you figure this out, then there is almost endless amount of free money you can get for your business. Like you literally could scale a 7, 8, even 9-figure business just on free money from grants once you figure it out. Because once you put together a grant proposal, well, that grant proposal is already done. It's already there. Now, you have to modify it for every grant you apply for, but the majority of the work comes in putting together that first proposal. Once you have that done, minor modifications, you're able to use that and be able to start applying for a lot of different grants throughout the lifetime of your business, from launching a business to massive growth and scaling. So you really want to consider grants, and grants.gov is the best source that exists for actually tapping into federal grants. Now, the second type of grants that you want to look into is from Grant Watch. Now, Grant Watch are basically where you're able to find local grants. These are state grants, they're city grants, they're community grants, they're county grants. So they really drill down to a state level and then all the way down to like municipalities and to be able to drill down into counties and specific cities. So Grant Watch is the best for local grants. I call them local grants, but they're really state all the way down to local areas and cities. And then Grant Watch is the best one to actually find the right veteran grant for you on that side. Now, I couldn't even do a training just on all the grants for veterans because there's so many out there you can get. And they're very specified. Like I said, they're based on geographic area. They're based on industry. So you wouldn't want to sit through a 4-hour training or you go through every single grant that's out there. But if you go to Grant Watch or you go to grants.gov, then you're able to put in your criteria, including your veteran, and start narrowing down to find the right grant programs for you. Now, the next type of financing is easier to get than SBA. It's easier to get than alternative loans. And this is basically something called peer-to-peer lending. Now, P2P lending is basically what we're doing is we're working within requirements that have changed over the last decade that now allow regular individuals that are not accredited investors to invest into privately owned companies. You see, typically in the past, it's always been that if you want to get a private investor to invest in you, they have to be accredited. And that accreditation usually requires that they have like a certain net worth and a certain amount of income. So they have to have like $1 million net worth or make like $250,000 a year in income. So because of those requirements, a lot of average day people get excluded. They're not able to invest. Now regulations have changed where you and I, just even average day people, are able to come in and invest into privately owned companies through some form of crowdfunding amongst other means. Well, this is where peer-to-peer lending is really picked up. So if we look at P2P lending, what we basically do is we look at you as a borrower. So you're a veteran-owned business. You're looking to borrow money. Then we have the backers. The backers are just regular accredited investors, non-accredited investors that are putting their money in. Then you have in the middle a platform. And the platform, for example, in this case could be Lending Club or Prosper. And Lending Club or Prosper are the platforms in the middle that actually are combining the backer and the actual borrower. So what happens is those platforms bring together. You go in, you apply, you can even say, hey, look, I'm a veteran-owned business when you're actually applying. And then what happens from there is you're then able to then put in your information. They then go in and use that information to qualify you. And when you're qualified, they get the money pulled together from the backers. So why this is different is that it's always hard to get the money you need from one lending institution. If I want $50K, I'm way better off to go get $10K from 5 lenders and try to get $50K from one lender. The one lender is really going to scrutinize the application if I'm getting $50K, but they're less likely to scrutinize it as much if I'm getting smaller amounts like $10K. Well, that's the way P2P lending works, is that when you meet the criteria per their algorithm, and they're all a little bit unique, then what happens is you come out the other side and they say you're qualified. Now they go to these backers. Some people might put in $25. Some people might put in $1,000, but they pool together all of that money and then give you the $50,000 that you want. So it's easier this way because that $50K they give you might be pulled together from 50 different investors that actually come together to lend that money. So peer-to-peer lending, because it comes from your peers, because it comes from individuals and it's not coming from lending institutions, is way easier to get and to qualify for than what you'd actually see on the lending side, whether it be SBA or alternative lenders. This is fast money. You could typically get approved immediately, and then you're usually getting funded same day or same week. I mean, like money in your account maybe within 72 hours. And it takes into account things like business revenue. It'll also take into account your personal income. So these are easier to qualify for because even if you're just launching your business, you're still able to get approved as well. And then again, it's way easier. Your credit score requirements aren't nearly as high as what you'd find with term loans, alternative lenders, and SBA as well. So P2P lending, and they've even got some very special SBA or lending programs from P2P lenders that are specifically for veterans, is definitely an option that you want to look at. Way easier than getting money from SBA or from alternative lenders as well. Now that brings me to my next option, which are veteran-focused credit unions. So when we look at the lending system, we basically look at about 4 different kinds of tiers of banks. And this is important because if you ever want to do funding stacking or credit card stacking, which I teach here on our live streams, well, then you need to know the tiering system of banks, and I should say lending institutions. So tier 1 is like your major bank. It's a regional bank. So these are Bank of America. These are Chase, for example, right? These are Chase, Bank of America, Regions, Barclays. You get the idea. These are big, large national banks, the ones that you see basically own all the buildings in these major areas like Regions Bank. They are your tier 1 banks, your biggest banks that are out there. Then we get to tier 2 banks, and tier 2 banks are oftentimes called regional banks, right? So these are banks that are unique in a region of the country, but you're not going to see them typically anywhere else. And typically what happens is when they get their deposits high enough, they get gobbled up and bought by one of the regional banks, and then new ones pop up. It's kind of a model, right? So for example, here in Tampa, we have the Bank of Tampa, right? You definitely have your own banks in your own town that you don't see anywhere else. So there's a lot of those in Tampa. There's a lot of those where you are. And these banks come and they get deposits and they start getting their clientele built up. Then when they get to a certain level, a Bank of America will come in and then ultimately buy them out. And then these new local ones pop up all the time because they're doing all the hard work of getting it launched. And then they exit for quite a bit of money to the big banks. So those are called tier 2 banks, the banks that are basically dedicated to a certain region. Then we deal with tier 3. Tier 3 are credit unions. So an example here of veteran-focused credit unions is Navy Federal Credit Union, right? One of the most popular credit unions you could think of. Now, if we kind of combine tier 2 and 3, a regional credit union, well, right here, we've got MacDill Credit Union. So I can actually see MacDill Air Force Base right from where I am right now. Right here's MacDill Air Force Base. And here locally, we have MacDill Credit Union because like we have our Air Force bases right here. And then they have like a spinoff credit union. So that's an example of basically veteran-focused credit unions that make it very easy to get credit lines, credit cards, and loans with. So if you are a veteran, you need to, even if you're going to deal with another bank, like I deal with Regions Bank, but that's one of my primary banks. I deal with a lot of banks, but they're one of my primaries. But then I also still have accounts with credit unions, with Navy Federal Credit Union, with like your military credit unions as well, right? And you should as well, because those military credit unions, a lot of them won't even let you in unless you're like a veteran or you're active duty or like you're a spouse or sometimes even a relative of somebody that is a veteran or that's active duty. And they give preferential treatment to veterans. So basically, to be a member, you oftentimes have to be a veteran. And then you'll find that once you are a member, it's easier to be able to get loans, credit lines, and credit cards. So my advice to you is to find the credit unions in your local area that are of this way, like MacDill Federal Credit Union here, Navy Federal Credit Union, and then go open some accounts with them and start moving some money in and out of those accounts, even if it's not a lot of money. Because once you have an account like that seasoned for 2 to 6 months, then it's fairly easy to walk in there and get loans, credit lines, even credit cards. You're going to have a lot of different options, not just one kind of loan. So make sure if you are a veteran that you open accounts with Navy Federal Credit Union, whatever ones are local to you. If you have more than one option, open multiple of them, because this opens the door for you to start getting funding from each one of them through the forms of loans, credit lines, and credit cards as well. Now, the next isn't specific to veterans, but it's something you should consider, which is obviously business credit. And the reason you want to consider business credit is because a lot of credit card issuers will, again, give you preferential treatment because you are a veteran. Okay, and business credit is like the foundation of everything else. Meaning, I don't care if you go to Navy Federal Credit Union, MacDill Federal Credit Union, you go to peer-to-peer lenders, you go to get SBA loan, any of the options we've talked about here. Having a strong business credit profile and score is it's significant determining factor with you being able to get approved for credit and financing. So business credit not only can get you like 90% of the money you need to grow your business anyways, but a lot of those credit issuers will give you preferential treatments because you are a veteran. And then by building business credit, you're getting access to really an unlimited amount of money you can use to grow your business because there's no limit to the amount of credit you're able to get. You're able to get it without a personal guarantee, without a personal credit check, even when you can't get any other kind of funding. Even as a startup business, it covers like 90% of whatever you need to buy anyways. And then by getting it and using it, you're building a credit profile that helps you get every other kind of financing that we've actually talked about here today as well. So there you have it. Those are my best options really when it comes to financing for veteran-owned business. To go back and do a quick summary, number one best option always is the Veterans Advantage Program through SBA. You're able to get moved to the top of the stack per se of those that get underwritten, so the approvals are quick, oftentimes funded in less than a month. And you're able to get really good terms, 15 to 30-year terms lower interest rates because you're a veteran. And again, SBA will waive some of the fees just because you are a veteran. So a lot of advantages there. Number two, we look at alternative or private lenders. We didn't just make a cut for SBA, but alternative and private lenders help us still be able to come in and qualify and get approved. And these alternative lenders only require oftentimes 620 FICO scores, 1 year worth of tax returns. So way easier to get approved for than SBA loans. And again, we're getting preferential treatment because we are veterans. Then option number three is grants. It's free money. It's money we don't have to paid back. And there's two main sources for veterans that we want to look at. One is the local community state grants. And this is through Grant Watch. So we can go to Grant Watch and we are able through Grant Watch to find all the grants that work for us as veterans in our state, in our region, in our county. And then we can also go to grants.gov, the biggest source of grants in the country. And there's a lot of grants you're able to get there as being a veteran-owned business as well. And then from there, the next option is we go to peer-to-peer lender. We get away from lenders altogether and we start getting money from individuals through our peers. Way easier to get than alternative lending and SBA lending. We can typically get approved same day, funded in about 4 days or less, oftentimes about 3 days. And again, there's preferential loan programs for places like Lending Club, Prosper, and even other P2P lenders that will give us money and make it easier for us to get approved because we are veterans. Then we look at veteran-focused credit unions, right? Those tier 3 lenders, not regional banks, okay, not major banks, but now we're talking about credit unions. Navy Federal Credit Union, the most popular of them, and there are also ones local in your area. If you have any military bases around you, ours here in Tampa is McDill Federal Credit Union. And then we also, beyond that, look at business credit. And business credit is a catch-all. We can fund, anybody can get it. It helps us get all this other kind of funding because we're building a credit profile that helps us qualify. We're getting 90% of the money that we need to be able to grow the business. And a lot of the individual credit card issuers will give us either lower interest rates or make it easier for us to get approved being a veteran-owned business. So there you have it. Those are really my 6 best methods for you to get money as a veteran-owned business. Some of these are free. They're grants. Some of them are very easy to get, like business credit. Some of them are hard to get, but fantastic terms like SBA. And some of them, like alternative lending and P2P, is somewhere in between where it's way easier to get than most other kind of financing as well. And all of these have preferential treatment specifically for you being a veteran-owned business. So there you have it. And again, thank you for your service. I appreciate what you do for our country, what you've done, and what you continue to do for our country. And now here's one of the many perks and benefits you get for that service is taking advantage of some of these really, really good loan programs that are designed for veterans. So look, if you got value from this training, share it with a veteran, share it with somebody so they know what their options are. And then also make sure you like and subscribe and keep your eye out for